Hey guys, welcome to my video on pruning hydrangeas. This video may not find you at the right time of year for when you should be pruning. It's different depending on your growing zone, when your first frost is, when your last frost is. So who knows when you'll be watching this video. I'm just going to share how I prune my hydrangea and keep it healthy and in shape. So let's get started. I'm also kind of redoing that bed a little bit, so you'll have a little bit of makeover as we go, gardening makeover. Glad you're here. It is the beginning of September, and I'm about 2 months out before my first frost. Ideally, with this type of hydrangea, you want to prune immediately after the flowering has started to fade. As you can see, the entire flower bed, including my Mophead hydrangea, is overgrown, very tired after a long season, and ready for some shaping up. Now, normally I do not prune my hydrangea going into fall. I usually do that late winter into early spring. However, because it was so overgrown this year and blocking the light to some of the tomatoes I had in these containers, I realized that I really do need to do a hard prune to shape it up. There is a little bit of fungal disease that was also happening. So I really want to get this hydrangea into a good place 2 months before our first frost. Now, keep in mind with this type of hydrangea, it blooms on old wood. So anything I prune off potentially is cutting down my flowers for next year. All right, let's go way back to March of this year. You can see the hydrangea looks totally different, right? Coming out of winter, you can see the new leafing out and blooms that are wanting to develop. Now, I like to leave my old flower heads on all winter for beautiful interest. I think they're gorgeous. So that is the reason I normally do not prune late summer. I usually like to do what I'm doing in this video is wait until, we're starting to come out of dormancy so that I can see what's going on with the plant. Because it is really tricky with these blooming on old wood shrubs to know what is actually viable old wood and what is actually spent old wood. And one way I can tell the difference sometimes is to kind of tug a little. If it's an old spent branch, it will just come straight up. If there is some resistance, just leave it, because sometimes some of this old wood doesn't leaf out until a little later. It doesn't all happen at the very exact same time. You may also note very distinct color differences in the old wood that is viable versus not. You're also going to have new growth coming up from the base of the plant, and just let it be, and that's what I do. And this is a spent one that I was able just to very easily pull out. This one, not coming out, so they stay. Even though I don't see any growth on them right now, there will be possibly to come in the future months. So you can see I've got a nice pile of spent hydrangea branches, and some that I had to cut out actually, that were either crossing over or clogging up the crown or the center of the hydrangea. And now here we go. We're pretty much at the end stage of pruning late winter. You can see it's much more thinned out. It's got a nice shape to it. And we will soon see though that actually this plant put on a lot of growth, and it was huge by the end of summer. By mid-May to early June, my hydrangeas are blooming gorgeous, nice blue colors because I have very acidic soil. You can adjust the color by adjusting your pH in your soil. Just remember, anything you cut off after blooming will affect the blooms you have the next summer. Fast forward in time, these are the exact same flowers we just looked at 2 months later. And now I'm ready to prune for summer going into fall. Ideally, I would have started this pruning project mid-August because most of my blooms are more faded. There are still a few in the backside here that have some color, but a lot towards the front are actually taking on a darker tone. But I'm doing the best I can. I think I still have enough time, at least 8 weeks before first frost. And I really want to get this guy shaped up. He was hanging over the edging of this flower bed all summer. He was over on my tomatoes. So it was just really, really out of control, way too big. So you can see comparing this to the same plant we looked at in March, this plant put on a lot of new growth this year, just a massive amount of growth. So I really want to shape it up and get it under control. You can see all the new growth that came off of the old wood and just grew prolifically. So I'm going to make my cuts kind of the same way I do in late winter. You can see the flower buds. Remember, all the flower buds for next year are already developing. So I'm cutting above the flower buds as I'm doing my pruning because I do want some flowers next year. When you remove old, spent branches that will no longer produce, it's especially hard in the spring, late winter when you're pruning, if that's when you choose to prune, to tell the difference between old wood that's going to bloom like this versus old wood that is spent and gone and dead. So I like to just come down to the bottom and pull. If it pulls up super easily, it's usually spent, like this one. This one is completely, you can see brown. So we know this branch can go. Let's take a peek at these cuttings. I don't think they're doing too well in the water, but they are definitely still firm and viable. I'm going to put them in fresh water for now, and tomorrow we will put them into soil. I think they will root much, much better. In fact, I have one that did root from a couple months ago. It's in soil. I need to pot it up, and we will go look at that here tomorrow as well. A little bit of time has passed since I pruned up this hydrangea. You can see it's actually trying to put out new growth. So keep in mind your growing zone, your first frost date. I'm still at least 4, 5, maybe even 6 weeks out. So I should be okay. You do not want to do this kind of pruning when you're going to be getting all this new tender growth right before your frost, right before first frost. So this plant will lose all of its leaves. You just want to make sure you're not going into the cold winter months with open wounds. In fact, there was a few left that I didn't prune up last time we worked on this. So I have some fresh cuts you can see right here. I just took off a couple more that seemed out of place. There's one more I want to remove. All of this pretty much can stay, but see this one? I thought I was going to leave it for height, but there is like an open wound right there. Maybe a bug kind of burrowed in there. It's kind of brown. There's a hole. I'm going to cut about 4 to 6 inches below that so that we removed that open kind of diseased area. Even though this part still looks kind of healthy, I just don't want to go into winter with anywhere something can burrow in if it's not already in there. Just leaving open gaps for wounds, and that's why you want everything nice and healed over before you get to that point of your first frost. So I removed the piece, and I should have been wearing my glasses. This is not a hole. This is a growth. Yeah, but from far away it did look like a hole, right? And it looked like this was all completely dead and brown. It is not. I'm getting old. I need glasses for detail. So we have another cutting we can try to root. They have not been rooting in water, but let's go see if any have rooted in soil. I know for a fact that this cutting is very much rooted in place. I'm going to pull it. It will not budge. It definitely has very good roots. I stuck this in here. It was an accidental cutting like 3 months ago. He has just been sitting here developing roots, growing. It's probably at least, I'd say, a quarter to a third bigger than when I stuck it in here. So this one definitely has roots. Let's go take a look at a more recent hydrangea cutting from this project. So this one has probably been just stuck down in this pot maybe, let's say 1 to 1.5, maybe 2 weeks ago. Let's see if he developed any roots. And there's definitely a give. This is not looking hopeful. You can see it's brown. Maybe if we pick these off, we'll have better luck. It could just be a very bad time of year. Spring would definitely be better. It's okay. At least we have one. Now that we have our Mophead hydrangea under control, I'm going to finish revamping this bed. I'm going to take out these red corabels or heuchera. I'm going to just stick them in a pot nearby. They were not getting enough light, and I don't want them to have to be here next summer. I think I'll only interplant annuals in front of the hydrangea with the carex grass there, which will get bigger and bigger each year. Those were cuttings from last fall when I worked on this bed. You can see the corabel there. And I think what I'm going to do is bring some of the impatiens into this area temporarily until we get our first frost. And then I will use pansies or viola as annuals in front of our hydrangea. The impatiens will die with first frost, but I want to have a pop of color here, at least for the next few weeks. After removing my tomatoes from this area, I decided to use this empty pot to put those cuttings we had in water into the soil, just all together. If they grow roots, they do. If they don't, they don't. I suspect there's definitely a bigger surge of growth hormone in the plant in the early spring versus now as we're going into fall. So stay tuned until the end of this clip of the final makeover and reveal of this bed. I think it looks a lot better. What do you think? I'm gonna go check on the cuttings that are in the soil in that container and see if we do have any roots at this point. Otherwise, we'll just give a check back in spring. We might be surprised, we may not, but here we are. I'm just giving you a look at the makeover. This is one of my favorite plants, Chinese fringe flower. It's beautiful, isn't it? Planted this last fall. There's two, one on each side of this bed. We've got the neon green carex, and I did remove this. I don't know why I left it there all year. In this little container here, I've got some impatiens that I rooted and also arugula seeds. We have got our, I'm going to put it on the screen. I can't remember. My brain is just completely going blank. You can see we got new growth there, but I'm going to leave all the old growth up here all winter and then cut this perennial back in late winter, early spring, so we get a flush of new growth. And that way that growth on top all winter will protect the fresh tender growth down at the bottom. And you can see I really cleaned up, weeded. We've got our hydrangea completely pruned. Should go into winter just fine. The only danger with these big leaves, they do well here in the south, is that if we get a frost, say April, then you really damage all those beautiful flower buds that would have bloomed in the summer. And here we have some ferns. All of my ferns have been dying back at this point, and that's normal, except for that guy. That guy always looks so gorgeous, the one in the container. I've got one tomato plant hanging on in this section that is Blazing Star. Not sure if I'll grow tomatoes again in this section next year. I may or I may not. We shall see. But I think overall this area looks really good. It's ready for the leaves to start falling, and that was my goal, to get this bed done before all the leaves start falling in the backyard. I've got some fresh cypress mulch down, and I even worked on the area in front of the lower deck here and divided my perennial geraniums and kind of spread them out. So now I've got like 5, I think, in front of the deck. Cleaned up some pots. If the squirrels would just leave everything alone, I would be so happy. They are relentless. I've never seen anything like it. The squirrels in my backyard are just, I don't know. I also pruned up these dwarf blueberry bushes to keep them more compact and more appropriately sized for this deck area. And so I'm pretty pleased with getting that hydrangea under control. I think it'll do fine. Keep in mind, if you live in a colder growing zone, you may want to look at some of the newer varieties of hydrangeas that grow on both new and old wood. And there are also some that grow only on new wood that might do better in your location. Look at those arugulas popping there. All right, guys, so stay tuned. I'm going to go check on the cuttings. All right, it's October 12th. I'm randomly just going to pick a couple of these guys to check. But look at how much growth has been put on after pruning on some of these branches. Really healthy looking, nice new growth. Nope. 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 Really think it was probably not the best time of year for cuttings. But I'm going to leave this container just as it is. We'll see what happens over winter. Alright guys, glad you were here. See you in the next video. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful week.